It's undeniable to say that over the last few years, Fortnite storyline live events have become a bit of a thing of the past. I mean, sure, we have little segments here and there, and we have the mini live events too, which I absolutely love, but full-scale storyline-focused live events like Collision and The End are just non-existent now. And some would argue that Fracture was really the last story live event, but we all know how that went. Fracture will always be infamous for how overhyped it was, for how the marketing was absolutely incredible, and the event was, well, not so incredible. But what if it was? What if somehow a group of people came together to reshape Fortnite's worst event in history? Well, I'm going to tell you how we did exactly that. Fracture Reshaped brought on a level of success that myself and the others at Genesis Studios could have honestly never anticipated, and we're all incredibly thankful for that. Reaction videos from Courage JD, Cypher PK, and my name in a Nick A30 video. Nearly 2,000 viewers on just the premiere and over 300,000 plays within the first month, and yet all of this, all these impressive results, the whole story, it all starts on a random Friday morning at 4 AM. I was up, for whatever reason, scrolling on Discord on my phone, which I'm very glad I did now, when a server I was in just absolutely started blowing up with notifications, so of course, I go to check it out. Turns out a project I became part of back in December of 2023 was starting to become active again, all because they had just been backed by arguably the most iconic UEFN studio in Fortnite history for their live events. Sounds pretty cool, right? Well yeah, these guys were absolutely huge to me, and I'd played all their events, so I was obviously very excited to hear about this news, and then the CEO said he was excited to meet me? Now, it was genuinely 4 in the morning when I saw this. You can imagine how kind of just amazed and overwhelmed I was with the whole thing. So anyways, we got to DMs, and the CEO of Genesis, Rifty, messages me this. Hey Tedious, hope you're doing well. So there's a project we'd love for you to help write, and it's essentially Fracture, but if it was actually good and not excruciatingly long and broken. And we got to work almost immediately on this. Now, if you weren't already aware, Fracture Reshaped is just one of 3 events that are part of a much bigger vision for the studio. We plan on doing a full trilogy of Reshaped events, and I'll get into what exactly that means a little bit later, but for now, I'll let you know that our next event focuses on Chapter 2 Season 7, which sits right in the middle of, I guess you could call it, Fortnite's third peak. This is where the story was really going at it. The gameplay was super fun, the theming was really on point, but there was one big disappointment when this ended up looking like this. So you can expect our next event to again reshape that disappointment. Now the story I've put together with the other writers Whiskey and Timeless is obviously a huge part of the event, but another thing Fortnite events always pulled off really well was the visuals and the mechanics. Even in the more recent stuff like the concerts, it always just looks and flows incredibly, and luckily for us, Genesis has a very talented person working in the studio who allows our events to look and run as well as they do. So let's go ask a few questions to the lead developer of Fracture Reshaped, Links Top. So everyone who played Fracture Reshaped was obviously very impressed with all the visuals and the animations, and you've mentioned on Twitter that you were obviously the lead developer of Fracture Reshaped. How long does creating an event like this usually take?
I would say like one sequence per day, so I would say that one scene where Paradigm was fighting Harold, it's 5 seconds, right? It took me a whole day to do that.
So a lot of effort goes into the small stuff, yeah.
Yeah, depends on like what's happening on the screen. Like, is it easy? Do I have to animate it by hand? Do I have to use mocap? Depends.
Okay, yeah. And what do you think was the most kind of technically challenging part of the event to make?
I think it was the scene with the last reality arriving with the motherships.
Oh yeah.
It took a lot of time to figure out if the meshes for the motherships should be like high quality. It's actually impressive because I use the high poly mesh, like it's high quality, it's everything. It works well.
Yeah, no, it looks. Obviously, I wrote parts of the event, but when I saw the final product and them all coming through that rift at once, it looked really good to me. So yeah. Okay, and for the final question, the Geno ending with the deep sleep, that was mainly your kind of idea. It was kind of a last minute thing, but it worked really well with the event. How did the idea sort of come about, and how did you find the reactions that people had to that?
It's interesting because when I looked at the ending, people were looking at the island, I was thinking, man, this is the same thing we've done for the last 2 events. I feel like we should do something more interesting. The Deep Sweep is kind of like, how do I say this? It's like inspired by The Matrix. I actually watched it for the first time, like a few days before I had the idea. At first, it was the Nothing who's gonna be in that throne. Like you remember, I think, how we were discussing. We didn't really like that ending.
Yeah.
So I thought, what if we had Channel instead? Because he hasn't like been an antagonist in game.
And it was a great surprise.
It's been like the comics.
Yeah.
I saw like only like 3 people who said that didn't enjoy it, and I hope I can convince those people that this could be interesting with our next 2 events.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot of cool stuff coming with this Deep Sweep thing. Very excited.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks so much for jumping on Link's Top. Thanks for your time. I'm sure people will be interested to hear your input on it. So yeah, good to chat to you about it. Now, as Linkstop mentioned, a big reason we included Geno at the end of Fracture Reshaped was because he's never actually been an in-game antagonist, so we wanted to use this deep sleep idea to portray him for the first time in-game in a really kind of menacing way. The same thing goes for the Nothing. Now, although we have heard the Nothing's voice in-game, we've never actually seen him, so in our story, we used the character theorized to be the Nothing quite a lot, Triarch Nox, alongside my good friend Clark Clint's voice acting, to really bring this character to life. Obviously, all the writers for Fracture Reshaped, including myself, are also fans of the Fortnite story, so we really wanted to nail these characters, and it seems like we did, because the creator of Fortnite's storyline itself, Donald Mustard, followed the Genesis Studios Twitter account after seeing the Fracture Reshaped event. Now that's still honestly something I'm kind of yet to comprehend, because it's a massive deal, and it was also a big deal for me seeing content creators react to my scenes. Now, most of my writing in this event is found at the start and the end of the event. There's a line I put in about the Looper not being able to talk, which Nick A30 picked up on, so that was really cool. And then I actually got to write the final line of dialogue in the event, which was the Paradigm saying, "If you ever see the scientist again, tell him he was right about us." This one's kind of a double meaning. It references the actual ending of Fracture, but it also references the last message that Scientist left for Paradigm, where he says that he's always loved her. This was my way of making Paradigm give some closure, explaining that Scientist was right in the way he felt about her. It's really sad that their relationship never actually happened in the story, because the Chrome kind of got in the way of that one. But if this is the closest thing we ever get to it, then I'm at least happy that I got to write it. Now, on the topic of writing, I didn't make all this story for the event on my own. By the time I joined in on the project, a lot of the ideas had already been laid out by Linkstop, but it was here that I also met my fellow writer Whiskey, who wrote a bunch of the dialogue alongside me and a few iconic scenes of his own. Now, Whiskey and I didn't actually do a voiced interview for this video, but he sent me his responses to my questions here. I've got them up to show to you now. So the first thing I asked him was, how did you feel about people's reactions to the scenes that you wrote, including some of the biggest people in the Fortnite space? And Whiskey said, at first I didn't expect Fracture Reshaped to blow up nearly as much as it did. The insane reaction was really surprising for me. Seeing some of the biggest creators in the space like Courage JD and Nick A30 react to it was super cool, especially the scenes which I wrote. And yeah, that's a feeling I can absolutely relate to. I mean, people like Nick A30, Cypher PK, people that I've watched all throughout my time enjoying Fortnite and making Fortnite content, seeing them appreciate my work and Whiskey's work and all of our work is just, yeah, it's a really cool experience. Okay, the next question was, on the topic of the event gaining a lot of attention, was the Donald Mustard follow something you expected at all? And Whiskey said, the Donald Mustard following the Genesis account was far from anything that I'd ever imagined. I remember Rifty sending me a DM at 3 AM freaking out. It was really then that I realized how much of an impact this event had on the Fortnite space. And yeah, I mean, kind of, we used the Fortnite characters and the Fortnite storyline to make this event, so the person who made all those characters kind of coming in and appreciating our work, again, really cool, and as Whiskey said, it absolutely kind of just reinforced that idea of, making us realize how much of an impact this event did really have. Okay, and the final question was, how long have you been writing for and what inspired you to write? And Whiskey said, I was never really a writing guy, to be honest. I love to tell people stories and inspire others to make their own stories. It was really when I got into Greek mythology that I started writing in my free time. Of course, I had ideas and stories earlier than that, but I never went on and actually wrote them. It's only recently that I've really found my passion in it. Now, as I said, me and Whiskey both are incredibly passionate about the Fortnite storyline, so Fracture Reshaped obviously included lots of references to the story as well that a lot of you picked up on, and now I can have the chance to explain the inspiration behind them. The reference to the deleted Fracture scene with the mothership is pretty obvious, but we wanted to start our event off in the way that the actual Fracture was supposed to start, because I guarantee, even if just this mothership scene was involved, people would have genuinely loved this event 10 times more, because without it, it just doesn't make sense. A kinda less obvious one was the golden touch weapons being used to kill the Herald. This was a callback to not only the leaked chrome Midas spray that I think ended up releasing through a PlayStation Cup, but there's also a line I put in there about getting the golden touch weapons from Aurelia on the other side of the island, and if you got a really good memory, you'll know this was a callback to Aurelia's temple in Chapter 2, Season 6. We also reference Amy's physical body plotline, the chrome husks, and Chaos Agent being disrespected in every single trailer. But if I was to sit here and explain all the references, we'd be here for probably about an hour, so I think it's about time I talk about our next event, Skyfire Aftermath. As I said before, the peak time to follow Fortnite's story was in late Chapter 2 to early Chapter 3. And if anyone knows this, it's me, because that's when I started making storyline content. Now, even though that time period was really good, Skyfire's ending did still leave people pretty disappointed when the damage that was meant to be done to the island in the event by a massive mothership didn't translate into the game in a satisfying way at all. So, just like Fracture, we fixed that disappointment, and that's kind of where the whole idea for this new event came from. I'll pop it up here on screen now. Our next event really goes all in with the environment, and it fully immerses the player into an island just completely wrecked by the consequences of Season 7's live event. The event is also supposed to serve a very similar purpose to the Chapter 2 Season 6 Zero Crisis event, because that event was like an intro to the season, showing us around the new island, introducing important characters and plot points. So basically imagine an event exactly like that, but for Chapter 2 Season 8 instead, and also wrapping up some stories from Chapter 2 Season 7, and including lots of secrets and callbacks to characters, and honestly just heaps more. Like, I'm really looking forward to the release of this event, and I have to say, working on all of this has been some of the most fun I've ever had during my time in the Fortnite space. Being one of the main guys in the lore community for a while was really cool, but so is this, and now I get to really delve into my passion of writing. So let's end off this video by speaking to the guy who DM'd me at 4 in the morning. The guy who, without him, none of this would be possible. Genesis Studios CEO, Rifty. Okay, so first question, how long ago did you create Genesis Studios, and what sort of inspired you to create the studio, and as well just what inspired you to get involved with Fortnite Creative and the Fortnite creative space as a whole?
So I created Genesis Studios in July of 2022, shortly before UEFN came out. It was a 1.0 team. I started in the scene in 2020. Obviously, I had a BR map. But what inspired me to start Genesis Studios, you mean, yes?
Yeah.
So I kind of seen all these teams around, and I had a small team of my own. I was really contemplating myself. I could turn this into something, bigger. I have an end goal with this.
Yeah.
I really want to take this somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So I just kind of went with my gut and just started a team.
It was worth it, wasn't it? It really paid off for you.
It did. There was a lot of ups, but there's also a lot of downs, and that's just natural as they come.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. Yeah, man, that's awesome. Absolutely taking the risk of making the team really obviously, paid off for you. So before Fracture Reshaped, you had 2 events released as part of your series called Golden Island, which were really good events. But I mean, because your other events focused more on your own story, when you did Fracture Reshaped, which was more in line with the Fortnite story, did you kind of think that it was going to do a lot better? And how did you kind of react to the massive success of Fracture Reshaped?
I think if you look at the Golden Island events, the 2 we did, I think Doomsday and Convergence, right?
Yeah.
They got good reception. I think without those 2 events, Reshaped wouldn't have done nearly as well at all as it did. Okay. But I think, the build-up, if I'll be honest with you, I'm gonna put it out there, Fracture Reshaped was one of those, the way, you tell someone, oh, you have this crazy idea, and they're like, do not do it, that would be a terrible idea. It could really, damage your reputation or whatever.
Yeah.
That was one of those, Fracture Reshaped was one of those ideas. They're like, we're doing too many live events. It will literally kill our team. And
really?
Lo and behold, none of that happened.
Yeah.
And it was a massive success. Yeah, personally,
worth the risk.
During the development of the event, you know the way we marketed the event over time?
Yeah.
We do that with all of our events, but this one in particular had a lot more likes, reposts, like just a lot more interactions from the community, and we rapidly gained followers through only this event. This was, I wouldn't say fully expected, but part of me expected this to happen by the looks of the statistics. But yeah,
cool. All right. Okay, and for the final question, I just want to ask you, without spoiling it in any regard, what kind of aspect of Skyfire Aftermath are you looking forward to the most? Like, what part do you think, in comparison to Fracture, this event does really, really well, and you're excited for people to, see that and give feedback on that?
Ooh, so how do I explain without spoiling anything?
Yeah.
Okay.
So good.
Okay. So I think the writing quality is significantly better. Obviously, don't get me wrong, TDS, you and Whiskey did amazing with Fracture Reshaped.
Yeah, thank you.
You guys also did incredible with Skyfire's writing. Like how Fracture had depth, you guys took that and ran with it.
To another...
For this one.
Yeah.
Like, it was... I read the script, and it was really good. Like,
Thanks, man, yeah.
I applaud you guys. Even Timeless, like, I think Timeless...
yeah, he had such a good introduction to all of it,
Yeah, without spoiling anything, I have to say, the character...
Okay, so I'm not just making this up. The interview, for whatever reason, just cut off there, but Rifty was about to say that the characters in this event are really well developed, and lore fans will appreciate them, so... just pretend you heard him say that. So there you have it. The CEO of Genesis himself has just said that Skyfire Aftermath is going to be heavily story-driven, filled to the brim with references to old characters and plotlines, and it's just really not something you want to miss. Now that you know myself and the team behind the events a little bit better, it's important to remember that this isn't just one event. It's a whole trilogy. And with that, I'll leave you with the trailer for Skyfire Aftermath.
Working on some plays.